It is number 8 BYU. It is number 9 Texas Tech. The Red Raiders, as I said earlier, are favored by a staggering 10.5 points,
that's
Dan.
a lot of potatoes.
That is a lot of potatoes, my man.
That's a big number against an undefeated top 10 team, yeah.
So obviously, this is a monster game for both these teams.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a little bit bigger for Texas Tech, though, and here's why. On the heels of what we were just talking about with tiebreakers and conference championship scenarios and all that, if Texas Tech loses, they kind of play themselves out of the Big 12 title chase as a whole.
Like, maybe. Yeah, likely, maybe.
In all likelihood.
Yeah. Okay. You've done more of this math than I have.
I think in all likelihood, they kind of play themselves out of this thing.
Okay.
They could technically still get back to the title game. They would just need a lot more help. And I think on top of that, if you lose here, you're probably on the outside looking in with that playoff because suddenly you got a bunch of teams that are going to be losing their second game.
Yeah.
You're suddenly into that big old mishmash of 10-2 schools that, you don't want to leave it up to the committee unless you have to.
Right.
So this one means a lot for Texas Tech. BYU, by the way, could still lose this game and find their way into the title chase and find their way into the playoff.
Right.
They're undefeated right now, but Texas Tech isn't. They lost that game on the road to Arizona State. So this is a big deal.
And Texas Tech, by the way, does not have the signature non-conference moment that some other schools they might be compared with perhaps have. I think the Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, Oregon State.
That's right. I'm trying to figure out why this point spread's 10.5, though.
I'll tell you why. Texas Tech, I think, is the surest wagering team in America right now, right?
They're 89% against the point spread.
So the numbers have not been high enough as Texas Tech has been favored basically all year long. I think that's why. And that BYU hasn't necessarily been a great performer on the road. They started out terribly against Iowa State. They went to either overtime.
They won, Dan. They won.
But I'm saying the degree, the magnitude with which they play on the road versus at home in Provo, it's just different. Overtime, double overtime, or whatever against Arizona, right?
I mean, they've beaten 3 teams.
Close win against Colorado.
With winning records on the road, and not a lot of other teams out there have done that.
Winning is a skill. It's a good way to win. Texas Tech has been comfortably winning on the road as recently as 3 days ago, right?
Yeah, sure.
Against a decent enough Kansas State team. Not a great Kansas State team, but Texas Tech takes care of business in a way that BYU hasn't. BYU is really good. I'm just telling you that why the number might be where it is. This is not an evaluation of BYU's quality.
I went back, I reran this one through the computer, which, by the way, we are going to start calling these TPS reports.
Of course.
Ties point spread. Made some tweaks after last week. I feel better about where we're at on the computer side this week going into week 11. I've got this one at Tech minus 7.5.
Okay.
So 10.5 feels like a lot to me. I'm not comfortable giving 10.5 points to a team like BYU, which is, as we said here, very adaptable. Seems like they get better each week. Certainly that's the case for Bear Bachmeier. I've fully seen the light on BYU now. I think they're legit. I really like this team. I like what they're doing, even if I don't fully understand it all the time. I really like BYU. I think they're good. I just think that Texas Tech's a little bit better. And I think they end up getting the win, and I could talk about why, but I've got this one somewhere in the neighborhood of 34-27 Texas Tech at home.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech is better. They're playing at home. I think the noon kickoff, while sometimes it can be sleepy for teams, the fact that game day's there's going to be a ton of juice and electricity in the stadium. I like Tech to win. I think I'm with you. There is something a little bit scary to me about whatever the health of LJ Martin is. That's a big deal for BYU. He's been terrific for them this season and as a whole. And when he went out against Iowa State, it was all Bear Bachmeier. They could not run the ball at all as soon as he left the game. And he didn't even do much himself against Iowa State on the ground the last time we saw BYU. So there is some concern to me that we are seeing a first-year starter thrust into this position. Bear Bachmeier is really good. He's just a pure playmaker. He's really fun. But against this Texas Tech defense, this is very strange for me to say, so I'm going to say it more slowly than I normally would. Texas Tech's defense is the best thing in this game, and I don't think it's particularly close. Weird, Ty. We've been doing the show for like 16, 17 years. I've never had the opportunity to utter that phrase.
We've been getting a lot of actuallys from both these fan bases, actually.
That's fine. That just means everybody's charged up, and I love that. I appreciate that capital E engagement. That would be the biggest concern for me about BYU's chances is Bear Bachmeier making 2, 3, 4 awful passes or under duress passes that he would love to have back against this defense. You know, the overhauled secondary, the overhauled line, 2 really good linebackers in Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez. That would be the concern for me. It's a matter of how much you believe in the pixie dust that is like the BYU magic this year, right? Because every time they seem to have their backs against the wall, they make plays and they hold on.
They do, and they find ways to do it. So, like, I pulled out I have 3 things in particular that I'm watching. I'm not even going to say they're the keys to the game, but these are the 3 things that, as I watch this game on Saturday, I will be most focused on these things. To the point of BYU kind of having some pixie dust, BYU right now is way better on special teams. Way better on special teams, especially on kick returns, kickoff returns, and punt returns. They're not out there returning them for touchdowns, but they're really good at playing the field position game, which is where stuff like this tends to creep in. Doesn't show up in a box score, but field position is something that BYU has been great at feasting on this year.
Okay.
So if this ends up being a 1-score game, like I think it could be, watch out for field position. Watch out what BYU is doing on kick returns, even if it's like a 25-yard kick return. Doesn't go back for anything, but instead gets them to the 45-yard line instead of their own 35.
Yeah.
Stuff like that has a real impact in tight games like this, potentially like this. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to see on the BYU side is how they handle, as you mentioned, Jacob Rodriguez. I'll also throw David Bailey out there. So if you look at the profile for this Tech defense so far this season, these guys have been human wrecking balls.
They force fumbles. Yeah, of course.
They have been wrecking balls in the front 7. Sheil Wood, their new defensive coordinator, who has had a lot of success so far this year for Tech, he has been great at scheming them into positions where they can make big plays, almost like you would scheme a wide receiver open. He has been finding ways to get the line, to eat up space, to get these guys to play downhill and make some of these havoc plays. So to your point from earlier, if there's an issue with LJ Martin, if they're able to key even more on Bear Bachmeier, I've gotten beyond the point of saying he's a freshman because we're in November now, right? He's been the starting quarterback the whole year. There are definitely going to be some scenarios on the road just in general that he hasn't seen yet. He's got a lot of learning to do, but for sure, he's been pretty good this year. But what does it look like if Jacob Rodriguez, David Bailey, really all the playmakers on this Tech defense are able to put him in the crosshairs and he is the main focus? I don't know.
Sure.
All right, especially on the road. That's the second thing. And then the third is I need to know what BYU looks like defensively trying to handle this Texas Tech running game. Talk about something else.
That's the entire game to me. Yeah.
Talk about something else we need to say slowly. I know Taj Brooks was there for a while and he was very successful, but we're not exactly used to talking about Texas Tech as like a dynamic ground team. This is like a top 15 caliber defense for BYU. Relatively speaking, though, the rush defense is the weakness.
I mean, the past couple of years, Texas Tech has been a ground team with Taj Brooks, but yeah.
They have been very good on the ground with Taj Brooks. But for the vast majority of the time that we have talked about the Red Raiders, we've not talked about them as a ground team.
Yeah.
This has been
but as soon as they realized they got better.
And they did get better.
Yeah.
I'm still not used to it, though, so give me a minute.
Okay, that's fine.
This is not to say that BYU is getting pushed around on the ground. They're not getting pushed around on the ground. They're stopping like 1 out of every 5 runs dead in its tracks.
Right.
And that's top 20 in the country. So they've been okay. But they're also like 81st in the country in yards allowed before contact. How are both things possible, you might ask?
Good
Basically,
question.
when you get BYU on the ground, you really get them on the ground. And this, to me, is the matchup. This is the whole game. It's a really good Texas Tech offensive line and ground game against a BYU run defense that I have some questions about. If Texas Tech can get going on the ground, I think they win this one. If BYU can find a way to muddy it up, if they can find a way to make plays, even if it's an offense that's somewhat telegraphed with it all being on Bear Bachmeier again, then that's a different conversation. But as right now, as it stands here, what is this? Monday midday, I've got 34-27 Texas Tech.
Wow. Okay. By the way, here's a sidebar. This is a double Bear quarterback game.
Kind of.
Bear in and Bear.
Okay.
That's pretty good. Dos Osos.
Yeah.
I think the entire game is BYU's run defense. If BYU successfully wins this game on the road as like a double-digit or near double-digit dog, I think it's because they forced Baron Morton to try and win this game alone, and I don't think he can. So he has not, big game Bear, whatever you want to call it. He has not been that guy in the biggest moments for Texas Tech. But if they have a balanced offense, I think Texas Tech will be fine. If BYU forces a ton of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11, that's where I think they can really get Texas Tech on the road here and quiet the crowd. But they're going to need that pixie dust as well. What did you say, 27-20 or 34-27, something in there?
Yep.
31-24. So I guess I'll have BYU and take the points because even last season when BYU was on their run, they lost by 4 or 5 points on the road at ASU. I think they had the ugly game against Kansas, but Kansas didn't run away with that game.
I feel like they're really hard to blow out.
I think so. I think they're too complete and the roster is too thorough and too well coached. 31-24.